The street is where we create. We call it suburbanpreneurship.
Mixing big company resources with an entrepreneurial spirit.
This is Electric People. All right, James Brindley. We're in a strange warehouse on the wrong side of Houston, and we've gathered a forum of mentors and friends to have a conversation today. And frankly, I'm feeling it.
Yeah, likewise.
I'm excited. So, James Brindley, Brock Morrison, Taylor Turnbull, Ty Williams, what up? This will be great. Okay, so you have an awesome story that I want to get through, and want to crack that solid man wide open. You good with that?
Let's do it.
Okay. Maybe start with your background. Where are you from? How'd you grow up, and how'd you find us?
Sure. So, born and raised. Well, I was born on Beale Air Force Base. So my father's was military for 23 years in the Air Force.
Beale Air Force Base?
Beale.
Where's
right,
Beale?
Right next to Yuba City.
Oh, really?
Yeah, right next to Yuba City.
The land up north.
Yeah. So I was born there, lived there for 12 years. I'm one of 5 kids. And then we moved to Korea and then back to
For the Air Force.
For the Air Force. Yep. Took the whole family, lived in a small apartment, 3-bedroom apartment in downtown Osan.
No way. So you were 12 when you moved to Korea?
Mm-hmm. Fifth grade.
I've known you for 10 years, and I did not know you lived in Korea.
Yep.
Did you guys know he lived?
I also didn't know. How long were you there?
Just a year.
Okay.
Wow.
Did you learn any Korean?
Kamsahamnida, annyeonghaseyo.
Oh, he's in it.
That's
okay.
about 4 words.
I think I learned more than that from just K-pop Demon Hunters. How many times have my daughters watched that?
So from Korea.
So Korea, moved back to California, back to Beale, but we didn't live on base. We moved off base to a small town called Penn Valley. So in between Sacramento and Lake Tahoe. And it was, we moved to a piece of property, we have 5 acres out in the middle of the forest, I would call it. And, had all the things, pigs, cows, chickens, and, it was fun. I mean, it was hard living, it was, my dad, I was just talking to my dad the other day, and, raising a family of 7, I think when he retired after 23 years, he was making $50K,
wow.
And so.
And willing to, I just think about that, you said you're one of 5?
One of 5, yeah.
So then, your work orders say you have to take your family to Korea for a year for a job. It actually
says you don't have to take them. In fact, they don't pay for you to take the kids.
He just took.
So you go.
Yeah.
He has to go, but he decided, I'm not going to leave my family behind. And so he took us all over there on his own dime, which is, why we lived in a very small place.
Wow.
Slept on the floor. It was wild, but
I just wonder if for a market leader who makes exponentially more than that, if we're hey, listen, job requires you to go to Korea for a year, and people would just be no.
Did you feel when you were that age, sleeping on the floor and that kind of stuff, did you feel a sense of this is a really hard life, or did you feel a sense of lack at that time in your life, or was it just kind of this is what life is like?
Yeah, it was just what life was like. I mean, looking back at it, I don't know if the poor is the right word, but no, we lived, we ate, we had everything we needed, clothes. Granted, weren't wearing nice things. We were shopping at thrift stores and getting by, but it was just life. My father, we worked hard, right? So I kind of envy the way he brought us up, because car breaks down, brakes need to be changed, transmission needs to be swapped out. We're doing the work, and we're there with them. Garage needs to be built. We're building the garage. We're converting our garage into 2 or 3 bedrooms. When we moved back from Korea to Penn Valley, and so you just did everything. So it's kind of cool in the sense that it's all we knew. Was just to work hard, and it was fun. I don't, I look back at it, and I wish there was a way to bring up my kids kind of the same way. Living our lifestyle. It's hard to raise them, to where they have that same work ethic.
There's something in you, I think we all understand that from knowing everybody's background, but as you were talking about the addition on the garage or fixing stuff in your car, it creates because that's a completely different reality than the one that you live right now and that your family lives right now. And so it's weird because that's what you know. So I feel that too. Like your kids aren't growing up that same way. But I remember like my dad when he was like, he started as a repo man at the bank, and then he worked his way up to be like a teller, and then he worked his way up to be like a salesperson or whatever. And I remember like when I was really little, we had this like split level house, and the downstairs was just unfinished. So it's kind of like a 1-story house on top of like a little basement. And then I remember he would come home from work, we'd eat dinner, and then him and his friends would like turn on these like lights like this and like put up plastic, and they would work on finishing the basement. And I think of like my life now, and it's like I haven't been home for a few days. And we've had all kinds of work done on the house, and I just like send a couple texts, and then like it sometimes feels a little, I don't know, like maybe wasteful, but it would be more wasteful for me to do the work. I know that, but it is such a difference from how like we grew up, right? Like you would have like had to go fix the fence. I text the landscaper and like, you just fix this fence, and you send him a Zelle, and you know what I mean? It feels a little strange.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, we just had Christmas lights put up, and it's like, I'm not doing that, but when I was growing up, it was like, all right, boys, come out. I kind of tell these guys all the time, we grew up in a small house with no central air, no central heat. We had a wood stove, which, if you don't know what a wood stove is, it's like the size of a microwave, or a little bit bigger than a microwave, smaller than a stove. And it's how you heat your home. And, our motto in Austin is keep chopping. And it kind of comes from this idea of, being raised. My dad was always working, and on Sundays specifically, we'd go to church, and then we'd go out and chop wood. And he'd get the two boys. I have a twin brother. So we would go out and, get in our truck and drive out, to the forest and cut down a tree, and then push the rounds over to the truck, load it up, get back to the house. And that's when the wood splitting, began. And, it's just like, no matter how you felt, no matter the weather, no matter, if dad said, hey, get in the truck, we're going to go, get firewood, it's just kind of like a yes, sir sort of thing. And he just did it. Right. And, in Austin, it's kind of our motto, because it's just like, hey, no matter how you feel, you gotta show up. You gotta keep chopping the wood. Some days it's easy, some days it's harder. Some days it's cold, some days it's hot. And just like chopping wood, it's like, you're not always gonna split the wood the first time. Sometimes it takes 5, 6, 7, 8 whacks. I mean, that axe is pretty heavy, and so it takes a lot of practice. And it just, we try to embody that in Austin. And I'm just so grateful for how I was raised and the life lessons that it taught me. And I just wish I hope I can kind of pass those same things, down to my kids.
Dude, the industry is actually built on that. Like, all like through our like lineage of like summer seasonal sales, into what this has turned into, which is like, a multi-channel, multi-different like opportunity, but it's still like direct sales. You go down to like the earliest roots of it. It is pretty much like farmer kids, wrestlers, football players, like that just like learned that kind of like ordinary kind of work ethic. So we're meeting with the Houston team, and we're talking about this message of turning pro. So in Stephen Pressfield's book, Turning Pro, he talks about how the pro has kind of this, he says it's ordinary and workmanlike mentality. So like what you were describing with your brother of like, you got to chop the wood. Like the wood does, the empty stove doesn't care if you don't feel great today. And that's just kind of like this whole like, no emotion behind it. It's just like, just ordinary and workmanlike. You know what I mean? You just do the work. And people that can adopt that mentality to this job and not ride the highs and lows, which we'll talk about, but people that can adopt that for this job, he says in there, one bad day is nothing. 10 bad days is nothing. You just kind of like do the thing and don't think about it. And so I always think about like that upbringing. Like you think of like our parents or our grandparents. Like if you were to ask my grandpa, like, were you passionate about your work? He'd be like, what? Like, hey, you know what? What do you mean? And can you pick that up? Like, you know what I mean? Like it wasn't really a thing. And it is different now because, you said your dad was always working, but if you think of the hours spent working on our jobs now, constantly connected, constantly networking, constantly managing different things. So it's weird that those feelings sometimes exist because they're different than how it sounds like we were all raised. But it is like, what will our kids think? Because it's like, I feel like I wake up running and go to sleep exhausted from running. Like, and I kind of don't know what hours I work. You just work. It's just kind of like it's life and it's work kind of all intermixed. And that's why I think you have to coordinate other people to do other work that needs to be done while you're doing work that no one else can do, you know?
100%. I mean, I think my kids, they know, daddy's going to work, and it's important for me to, that they do know, that I'm not just, that they know, they see me dressed and like, oh, daddy's going to work. Yeah. It's Saturday morning, daddy's going to work. Yep. I'll see you guys, when I get home, and maybe I won't see you because like you said, the hours, are long, but I just want them to at least know like, hey, look, I saw my parents working. I saw my dad working, so at least they have that to kind of, look up to.
So you're out in the woods near Beale.
Yeah.
Then where?
Then, so then Utah State. So yeah, stayed there. My, lived, went to high school there. Got a football scholarship to Utah State. And went out to Logan in 2006. And so spent 4 years out there playing football. And then, had my shot at the NFL. So, moved to Seattle. And
how's that process work? So you're playing and then what, you get scouted or you like go to tryouts? How does it work?
Yeah.
How does a footballer get a shot at pro?
And also, at what point did you feel like you kind of knew that, like, even in high school, it's like, oh, I could play in college, or that's a goal to play in college. Like, I'm good enough that I could do that. You know what I mean? Because it kind of, I think a lot of people play football in high school and don't think, oh, I'm going to play in college. Like, at what point did you realize, like, oh, yeah, I actually could play at the next level?
That's a good question. Yeah, I'm 5'10", 205 pounds now. But, when I was 16, 15, I was...
But you got that wood chopping body, dude.
Wood chopping body, yeah. Freshman year, I wasn't... Like, I was always a decent athlete, right? And I always... if someone was better than me, I always, saw someone better and was able to kind of outwork them to get to their skill level in some way, shape, or form. So throughout high school, I didn't... I think my breakout year, was my junior year of high school, where I kind of, had this breakout year where I was like, okay, I think I'm good enough to play at the next level. And so many people along the way told me, I would never play in college. It was a dream as a small kid to play in the NFL. Like everybody's, dream of it, or every kid's dream. But, playing at the next level became a reality when, coaches would start coming to your high school and start watching your practice. We had a kid named Andrew Jackson who was highly, sought after. He was a giant. I mean, he was 6'4", 6'6", offensive lineman, just a beast.
Just built for it.
Yeah, just built for it, right? So they would come really wanting to see him. And I thought, hey, look at me too, and anyways, I mean, coach, yeah, they see it. I mean, if you perform, you're going to get noticed, and someone's going to give you a chance. And so one coach gave me a chance, and kind of the same thing happened in college. I mean, I went in there, undersized. There's far better athletes than me, freshman year. All-American linebacker, all these guys with tons of skill, natural, God-given ability that just would go out there and just were amazing athletes. And kind of the same thing that I just had to keep chopping wood, I just saw that. And, 4 years is a long time, and you can do a lot in 4 years. And, if you looked at me my freshman year and said, out of the entire team, this guy's going to be the guy that makes it to the next level, people would have thought, you were crazy. But, my whole focus was, I'm just going to outwork them, when they're out drinking and partying, I'm going to be at the gym, doing bicep curls or whatever, and I just slowly saw myself just kind of pass them up, and it was cool to see. I mean, it happens, over a couple seasons. And then your senior year, there's the combine and or pro day where, all the coaches, the NFL coaches come and watch you, basically perform, 40-yard dash, 225 bench, how high you jump, how big your hands are, your height, weight, all that sort of stuff.
To be invited to that, or can anybody?
The combine you have to be invited to. The pro day every college holds, and coaches come to you. So I didn't get invited to the combine, but coaches came and watched the pro day. You have an agent, you send out film and to all the scouts, to the coaches, and then you perform, and then you just kind of sit back and wait, on draft day, hoping that your name gets called.
Oh, really? So there's not like communication before that. Like
No.
you go to the combine, perform, and then watch the draft like everybody else.
I mean, they reach out to you, and there's like some communication and talks, but you just never know, right?
You don't know who, and you don't know. So it's not like, hey, there's 10 teams looking at you. I think we might.
Yeah, you kind of know. Like, hey, Seattle's kind of interested. Green Bay's kind of interested. Seattle said, hey, they're going to, pick you. And this is all through your agent, right? So they're not calling you specifically, but they're talking through your agent. They're like, hey, look, you may be a 7th round pick. Looks like, and you're, it's just.
Or you may just not make it.
You may just not make it, And so.
And for you, again, kind of like going back to that question of like, even in your college career, maybe freshman year, you're not thinking the league, right? Maybe you are.
Yeah.
But then at what point in college were you like, you know what, I can play, because it's kind of like belief has to be there, but belief a lot of times is helped by evidence, So like you work hard, evidence starts to kind of show up, and then it increases your belief. Like, when did you feel like in college, it was kind of like, you know what, I could play in the league?
Yeah, so they have a lot of awards that they give out. You get recognition, All-American. You get conference awards.
Mm.
You can break records. So there's a lot of things to gauge, talent.
Kind of status levels.
Yes,
right?
kind of status levels, exactly. And so, I was on some lists. I had broken some records. I was kind of making a name for myself. First team all, at the time is the WAC conference, and so there. You'd have to be kind of a fool to think you're going to make it when you're not being noticed or getting those lists. And a lot of people do. I mean, it's kind of sad to say, but there's a lot of people that think they're going to have a chance at the NFL that truly never had a shot, And I didn't really know I didn't really know for sure. I always had a backup plan. My plan to go to college was not to go play in the NFL. It was, hey, I'm going to go get a degree. I'm going to graduate, be the first one in my family to graduate, right out of high school. And then if I make it to the NFL, great, and that's a dream, and that's, a lofty one. If I don't, then here's plan B, And so it was, I worked my tail off that way. Like I didn't have any regrets, but it wasn't like a all or nothing sort of thing. And so I did everything I could control. And, ultimately the NFL is weird. There's a lot of people that make it to the NFL that probably shouldn't. And there's a lot of people that shouldn't, that probably should. And it's a game of timing. It's a game of, people getting injured.
Coaching staff.
Changes. And so it's tough. Obviously the elite ones stand out and they, are the obvious picks, and they're the ones that are getting drafted first round, second round, third round, fourth round. But after that is just, everybody's freaking good, and so you kind of get one shot at it, so.
Man, that's such a wild. I'm always fascinated by like the details of how that stuff works. Like I can't imagine like, I just think about our people and like how we do promotions, and they generally like, well, they've been working towards it and they know, but I can't imagine people like sitting and like watching the TV and being like, you may have a job or you may not. And then they're going to come to them and they're not going to like set you down and like be like, hey, like, it's like, hey, you didn't get picked and that's it. Like you've had a lot of like, there's a lot of like, just like harsh, like facing like true reality, right? Like very quickly. That's interesting to me.
Did you end up getting drafted then?
No. So, technically I was like a priority free agent.
Okay.
So, I was expected like 6th, 7th round. 6th, 7th round came. And before the draft ended, like I got a call from my agent saying, hey, Seattle's going to pick you up, as soon as the draft's done. And it was between me and like this tight end. They picked up this other guy. But I got picked up. Before the draft was over, I knew where I was going, which was cool. Just the difference is just like your signing bonus. So if you get picked 7th, you get a lot more than getting picked up after the draft,
right.
So and there's just a lot more investment, right? So you might get a longer chance through training camp if they invest and give you some of these signing bonuses. So
is it, so are you bummed or are you just happy to be able to play?
I'm stoked.
Yeah.
I'm stoked just to have a shot.
Yeah.
So
you go out there, you finish college, then you go out there.
Yep.
And what was that like?
It was the most stressful time, because you sign a 3-year contract, right? I signed this $1.2 million contract.
3-year.
3-year,
Uh-huh.
but it's if you play in these games and split up over these games, right?
Okay.
And like the minimum rookie year contract, like it was like $490,000 for your rookie year. And
that's only if you play, or kind of
only if you play.
regardless?
Yeah, it's only if you play, and you get, if you play one game, it's, if there's 16 games, you get whatever that amount is.
So if you don't play a single game,
if you're on the active roster, then
you still
You
get
don't have to
what?
start. You just have to be.
I have to be on the active roster, the 53-man roster. So I went out in May to rookie camp.
So if you're on the 53-man roster, you get 400 and something thousand a year.
490,000. That now it's like double that. But yeah,
But you stay active.
yeah. If you stay active on the team, you'll get paid that if you're there the whole season,
Okay.
right? Now I went out there.
That's crazy money for you, right?
Oh yeah, it's insane.
Point.
Oh yeah, but now check it. I mean, so I went out there in May. You're one of. Have you guys watched Hard Knocks?
Yeah.
So like Hard Knocks is training camp, and so you go out there and you have to make the team. I mean, there's 100 of you, and there's 53 spots, and so
They sign 100 guys to come in. Some of them obviously are franchise players. They know they're playing, but like
yeah,
there's probably 60 or so that are competing for those roster spots, right? Or 70 maybe.
exactly. And so like the stress, like you get put in a hotel, and you're in camp, and you have to learn the playbook.
Mm.
And the guys I was picked up the same year as Earl Thomas and Cam Chancellor, who became like the best safeties ever in Seattle.
You're a DB.
And I'm a DB. I'm the only white DB in a room of 20, people.
And you played corner, right?
I played safety.
Oh, you played
Played
safety.
safety,
Okay.
yeah. I went in and
Against two Hall of Fame safeties. You had two Hall of Fame safeties that are on that roster now. Yeah.
insane. And so I go there, and it's just stressful because nothing's guaranteed.
Yeah.
Tomorrow you could be gone. And they had like 200 and something transactions, that first year in Seattle. So like they'll bring in a guy tomorrow, and you'll see another guy leave. You'll walk into a meeting, and coach will be like, "Oh, where's James Brindley?" And they'll be like, "Oh yeah, he got cut." Like a lot of the decisions are made much higher up.
Mm.
And so you just, it's stressful. I mean, you want the guy next to you to do well, but you really don't.
Right.
Now he gets an interception, and in college it's like, hey, awesome job, but there it's like, darn it,
Yeah.
And so it was stressful. And so I made it all the way down to the final cut, but I got cut. And so like, usually when they cut you, I was eating breakfast, and they came in and said, hey coach, Pete Carroll's first year, wants to talk to you. I was like, oh shoot, it's not good. Right. And
You're like, he probably wants to tell me good job.
Yeah.
I'll see you.
Yeah.
Don't worry about Earl Thomas.
Yeah, exactly. And so he just says, a lot of times they don't even talk to you. So the fact that he like wanted to talk to me was I was stoked. And he came back and just said, hey, it's a numbers game. We can only keep so many, DBs. And it really is. 53 guys is not a lot, And so, long story short, he said, we'd love to bring you back next year. And I think, you'd be a great special teams player, a great backup to these guys, and kind of see you later, So then you're.
That's cool that he had the convo, because he's Pete Carroll, he's a big deal now, but starting even still for the head coach to talk to you and at least like, I don't know if that makes you feel any better.
Yeah.
He probably didn't do that for a lot of people, right?
I don't think so. Yeah. I did feel good about it. Again, my dreams are crushed.
Right.
You get a garbage bag with all your stuff. And it's like,
garbage bag is crazy.
Yeah.
Like at least a cardboard box feels more like their structure.
Or maybe like his nice like Seahawks duffel. I don't know.
yeah. No,
Came all that way.
Yeah.
How long was that whole process? How long you like in camp?
6 months.
Wow.
Yeah.
I never really thought about the stress of that and like the reality of it. I mean, it makes total sense. But
4 months. Yeah.
so then are people playing like head games and stuff too? Like are other players like, or not really?
Everyone's just kind of looking out for themselves.
Okay.
Like you're not building relationships.
Yeah.
You're not making best friends. You're keeping your head down.
But they're not strategically trying to get in your head so that they can, okay.
Not
Not
really.
like toxic.
No. Yeah. I mean, everybody. Yeah. No.
So if Pete gives you a compliment, then crushes your dreams.
Yep.
Then what?
Cried all the way home.
Hey, man, get it out.
I think I drove. Yeah. So I drove home, back to, I don't know if I went straight back to Penn Valley or what, but
You blocked it out.
yeah, and I think I had another tryout with like the Eagles, so they flew up to wherever their camp was and again for like 2 days, didn't make it. And then, basically went back to Utah and just trained and, kind of in hopes that, hey, maybe next year I'll get another shot. And so you kind of train all season because if someone gets hurt, you have a chance to get picked up at and it happens all the time. Just being in the right place at the right time, safety goes down. You see it all the time. People getting pulled out of retirement. It's more common with maybe the kicker or long snapper, but anyways, you train as if you're going to get called tomorrow. And so I continue to train and work out, hoping I'll get called. And I did. December 23rd, I got a call from my agent, and he's like, "Hey, Green Bay wants to re-sign you, and Seattle." And I was like, "Oh, this is awesome." Right. And so, obviously I chose Seattle. Just the loyalty there, and then wanting me back. I kind of felt good about it. So then again, like you're re-signed, and then,
Let's go that whole process again.
Yep. And, that in 2011, we had the lockout, which, the players just say, we're not going to play until you figure out the, some agreements, whatever, pay stuff. And so when I had normally have gone out there in May, I didn't. They sent you a training book to work out and to do your lifts and the playbook. So now you're just kind of doing it, at home, just practicing, working out, training for whenever the lockout ends. No one knows. And so, while I was working out, the team doctor called me and was like, "Hey, we need to come out and drug test you." I was like, he asked me, when can I come out? When are you available? I was like, "Dude, I'm tomorrow. Like, I'm not taking steroids. I don't smoke. I don't drink. Come out tomorrow." And he flies out, watches you do the whole thing, and thinking life is good. I'm excited to give it another shot up in Seattle. And, he calls me a week later, or I get an email, one of the two. He's like, "You failed the drug test." I was like, there's no way. He's like, "Yeah, you failed for amphetamines." I'm like, "I don't take, and I don't even know what an amphetamine is." And he's like, "Well, sorry, bud. Yeah, you're suspended for 4 games. Like, you're it is what it is, right?" So I'm like going to panic mode, trying to figure out like what an amphetamine is, and it's Adderall. So I'd taken an Adderall, just ignorance, play some video games the night before with a buddy, and failed the drug test.
A single Adderall?
Yeah. Yep.
Because technically it's in
your system.
But you weren't using Adderall
No.
consistently. You just happened to take it before your drug test.
Yeah. I may be taking it 2 or 3 times throughout college for a test, maybe, but yeah.
Wow.
No idea.
You like considering it like an energy drink or something at the time. Yeah.
Exactly. And so I kind of went into panic mode and was like, freaking out. Like, what do I do? I'm like, hey, if I get a prescription, will that be suffice? Like, would that, allow me to continue to play? And doctor was like, yeah, well, if you have one, then yeah, we'll consider that, And so, went and got a prescription. But by the time I got a prescription and like, it was too late,
Wow.
lockout had ended, they're not going to keep a guy that is suspended for the first 4 games, no matter what, when you're that kind of low on the list. Like I said, you get one shot, and I screwed it up,
Jeez.
And so I was devastated. And there I was, just not sure like what to do next. And so I got a job in sales in a gym, just kind of past time. And some guys came in and recruited me to Vivint to go out to Texas, to Austin, Texas, and sell alarms.
You started in Austin,
Texas?
Texas?
Started in Austin, Texas.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's actually pretty cool.
Yeah.
At this point, are you thinking like, I just got to figure this out and I still have a chance? Or are you pretty down and out thinking it's over?
I never told anyone the real reason, like why I got cut, right? Like I got cut the year before
or whatever.
Yeah, I got cut before because I wasn't good enough. I didn't make the team. And so I just kind of went with that whole thing. Was just like, hey, the lockout's weird. Like I got cut, but I didn't tell anyone for years, 10 years, like the shame. I mean, you train your whole life for this one opportunity and you get it and you screw it up. Like I was just,
and you in all seriousness, like you weren't a user. Like it's just
exactly
kind of situational.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you feel like when you unburdened that 10 years later, did you feel like a sense of relief?
Oh, yeah.
Having talked about it.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure we'll get into it, but
we're in it.
Yeah, we're in it.
Going.
Yeah. So anyways, yeah. So I mean, to answer your question, yeah. I mean, to be able to talk about it now, if it feels like, freeing to release it, you know? But I didn't, I held it in for so long. And, I came out to Texas and started knocking, doors and selling alarms. And I wasn't great at it at first. I hated talking to people. I was quiet. I was kind of an introvert, I just did my own thing. But I instantly was hooked with, that the amount of effort you put, you got rewarded for the amount of effort you put in.
Mhm.
And so I just obsessed with it, and kind of took like my work ethic in football and my obsession with that, and brought it into sales. I must have listened to like 100 books, my first year, and I was in it. I loved it, and but also I started taking Adderall. I had a prescription now.
And how were your results before that? Like when you a little bit more reserved, didn't come naturally, but worked really hard. Like how are you doing?
Compared to like others, people would like picked it up a lot quicker.
Uh-huh.
But like, again, I always found a way to kind of be towards the top,
Cool.
And so I just had to work longer, start earlier, in the summertime, they had like an extended summer, you could stay out for another month or so. So yeah, I would, and
did you always have like that feeling of like, hey, I know that I'll figure this out? Like, cause I'd went through that at the different stages of sports and stuff. Did you always know like this will work? Or was there a lot of doubts, from the beginning? Because it's a pretty big transition from like, being kind of like the jock and this cool guy of doing sports to now you're like knocking doors. Like, did you go through that at all? Or was it just like, no, I know I'll figure this out. Might take me a little bit longer, but I'll get there.
I mean, it was a foreign language to me. All I knew growing up was go to college, get a good degree, go get a good job, and so this idea of being able to make professional money, like knocking doors, I just was, I never knew what a door knocker was. I mean, I grew up in the country, like no one ever knocked on my door. So I was kind of like hesitant, like, is this even real? But I saw these guys driving nice cars, and I was like, heck, if he can do it, like, I'm going to figure it out, and if that guy can do it and he's saying I'll figure it out. And so just like the belief in myself and the work ethic, I figured I would at least be able to figure it out, and that's what, and I was able to, it took me a little bit longer, but.
When you first started, at what point did you start taking Adderall? Like, I know that's a part of kind of the journey and story. Like, at what point did that happen? Was it from the beginning?
Oh, yeah. So right when when I started sales, I started taking it as a cheat code.
Right.
Like, I thought it was like, first I was like, this is like, I'm going to be able to work longer, harder, focus more.
What does it feel like? I've never taken Adderall.
So if you don't have ADHD, it's a dopamine rush.
Okay.
If you,
So it's an amphetamine.
yeah.
Yeah.
If you have ADHD, you have a dopamine deficiency. So your brain, your neurotransmitters don't make enough of it.
Okay.
Right. And so it bumps it up. If you don't, your brain's already making a normal amount, and it's like floods it with more. And so you feel this high of like Superman. I mean, you feel like you can, do anything, can outwork anyone, and you feel
But
like
it's not like a high energy, like, wow, it's more of like an intense focus, right? Or
yeah.
but it does feel really good too.
Yeah, it's rewarding.
Oh.
Feel like doing something. It's very, you have motivation. You want to do stuff. You want to be active. You want to go do. And I loved it.
How'd you get a prescription?
It's not hard. I mean, you go see a psychiatrist and you answer some questions, and it's really easy.
So you don't but you didn't have ADHD. You didn't need the prescription. You got it. So then, how much are you supposed to take, and how much are you taking?
So they start you off low, right? They start you with a small dosage,
Like a daily pill?
Yeah. Yep. 10 milligrams
Okay.
to start.
Tiny.
Yep. And then, I mean, you can go back to the doctor and say, hey, it's not doing enough. I'm not focused, and I'm not, I'm tired or whatever,
The problem is it resets your dopamine baseline. So if your dopamine baseline was here, you take it, dopamine rushes in, and dopamine's the motivation molecule. So you feel motivated, but then your threshold, now your dopamine baseline is increased.
Yeah.
And so you feel great, but as you start coming back down off of that, you're actually below
Yep.
what your normal baseline was. And eventually you're just trying to take enough to feel how you normally felt in your normal state. And then you can't even get back to that.
Yeah. Your body is like, hey, look, you've been giving me artificial dopamine. Like, I don't need to make any more of it. So it's this nasty freaking cycle that you get into, and you're supposed to take breaks. Again, you're not supposed to be taking it if you don't have ADHD. When you're taking it, it's this like death cycle of just take it, you crash, you take it, you crash. Or in my case, I just took it 24/7. Like I took it and I couldn't get enough of it, And so I would take it, your tolerance builds up. You have to take more and more. Then you find ways to get it, So I obsessed over it, thinking at first, like I was better because of it.
Mm-hmm.
I was going to be the best. I was going to, because of it, and early on there were signs, I was losing friendships. I was so hyper focused that, you stop caring about, relationships and connecting with people. And so, really quickly I started taking an insane amount. And
really quickly, like that first summer?
No, not that first summer. I mean, I was taking, way more than I should have been, from the get-go.
Mm-hmm.
But that first summer I sold was 2012.
You remember how many you sold that year?
I want to say 104.
Okay.
Maybe that was my second summer.
Okay.
I think I made like 60.
The 100 mark is kind of the mark.
Yeah. I think I made that my second summer.
Mm-hmm.
First summer, maybe 60.
Okay.
Something just enough to like be like, oh, this is cool.
Yeah.
I can do this.
Mm-hmm.
And then my second summer went back to Austin and ran my own team.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm like, hey, look, I don't really like the guy that's leading me. I think I'm a better leader than him. And come to find out, I mean, you think you know a lot more than you really do. I'm like, damn, this guy actually,
I always think that because I don't watch football, but my friends all watch football, and I see them like yelling, "Come on, you're an idiot!" And then I'm like, dude, you have this experience. Imagine putting the helmet on and sitting in that view and being like, "Oh, okay, there's more to it than I thought." You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
I always say, like, you think you're a better driver, than someone hands you the keys, and you're like, "Oh, like this thing feels crazy. I get it now."
Yep. Yeah. So second summer went back to clean with my own team, and that's I sold 100. Again, still thinking like I was what's the word? High functioning.
Did you feel like you were in control still?
Yeah.
Like
I felt like I was
things
in
were still
control.
going. You were pushing new levels.
Yeah, I was I was doing like I was making money. I ran a team. Like I was
Getting recognition.
Like it was just like it was telling me I was doing the right thing. But my tolerance kept building up. I kept taking more and
So
more.
now you're having to be crafty to get it, right?
Oh,
Because the
and-
doctor's not just upping your dosage.
Correct. Yeah. And so you start figuring out who you can get it from, and it's it's not hard, right? But it takes time, and you got to know the right people, and you got to spend the money. So I was spending a ton of money, and this was 2013. So again, summer ended, and then Casey Baugh, who was my regional at the time, was like, "Hey, look, we're starting like the solar company called Vivint Solar, or we started it, and we're sending some guys off." So he's like, how quickly can you be in Hawaii? Like, it'd be cool to send you over there, and they have a great, it's like a well-oiled machine. And so me and my buddy were like, we can be there in 2 weeks. So February of 2014, I started selling solar in Hawaii. And
Is that on Dan's team? Was he there at that time, or had he left already?
yeah, he was there.
And Zach.
And Latimer. Yep. Yeah.
Was Jeff still there?
Jeff he was on Big Island. He had just opened up like Big Island.
Oh.
Yeah. But it's fun. Again, I mean, it took me a while. Like, me and my good buddy Jermaine went out there, and he sold a bunch like in his first month. It took me a good 30 days to get my first sale. And
Wow.
yeah. And so I stuck it out, fairly successful. Installs took forever, but love the idea of selling solar versus alarms. I just felt like it was and I like getting into sales in the first place because I felt like I was helping people out. Even with alarms, like here in Killeen, like people were like, I need it. I've been broken into, like, you're helping me out. Like, thank you. And so I like that aspect of it. And when I got into solar, I really felt like, oh man, I can help all these people, So I fell in love with it. And living in Hawaii was amazing. But yeah, I mean, things, things were still progressing. I would say things were still kind of going the right direction. And then I let we needed a new market leader out in Hawaii. I forget his name, but he was a surfer from like Orange County. He came out and like I had an extra bedroom, so he stayed with me.
Was it Cade?
No, it wasn't Cade.
Okay.
He didn't stay out there long, but he stayed with me. And
Were you there when Conway came out?
Conway had been there. John had been there. Yep.
Okay.
And I don't know this guy ever, because he was with me, and within like a month, he had me convinced to switch over to Legacy and like go back to California. And like I never thought about anything, but
He's a double agent.
yeah, he got in my head, and I was like, oh, this is great. I can move to Ventura County and get my brother to work with me and be a market leader and run my own team again. Because again, I thought I I could do it. Selling solar in Hawaii was probably the worst thing I ever did because, my pitch was, hey, we can cut your bill in half.
Yeah.
And like, it's a false sense of like, you think you have the skill set, but you don't, And so I thought it was really good. Moved to California in 2015, trying to sell solar where
Especially in Ventura County, man.
Yeah.
I remember
You're selling 3 to 5% savings. We've all knocked Ventura. I love Ventura County, but like, yeah, it's a very different offer.
Interesting to say that though, just quickly, like you think about all the people who were there with you guys in Ventura back in those days when Dave did his, 119 install quarter, and almost all of his customers were signing no savings addendums because they were
They're in tier 1.
cents in tier 1 and he was selling the 15 cents. But the reality is we saw when NEM 3 happened in California, it exposed a lot of people who had not invested in sales skills. They have not, because like you're saying, it got to a point in California where it was 50% savings and anyone could go and sell because you didn't have to have skills to do that. And as soon as it was like everybody's muscles atrophied, and as soon as that came and we had to start actually selling a product again, it just exposed a lot of people, and so it is an interesting thing you're saying, because that actually happened to hundreds and hundreds of reps in California a couple of years ago.
Yeah, so I fell right on my face and, realized I didn't know what the heck I was doing with the company that I had no support. And so I don't know if you remember, but you met me at Urban Cafe in 2015.
Dude, I'm addicted to that place. They put like sugar in the dough. So like, yeah, if we met, it was at the Urban Cafe. It came Rio, right?
you came to visit the teams who went to Urban. Yeah.
Thinking about it, I want to go there now. I have like a couple conditioned responses in Ventura County. One of them is Urban Cafe. And then the other one is there's this Chevron right at like the freeway, where if I sold a couple like in a day, I would always get myself a Twix candy bar, like Twix ice cream bar. Not every gas station has Twix ice cream bars.
No one did.
And sometimes they have old ones, so like the cookie part's not crunchy, and that place had the best ones. And so still when I drive that road, I want one as I drive by. It's like Pavlovian, like
It's amazing.
Anyway, so yeah, good times.
Yeah. So you, I don't think it was a difficult conversation, but you, recruited me back to Vivint Solar.
Connected, do you remember?
I think I just reached out to you.
Okay.
Like, I think I was just like, hey, I want to continue this solar thing, but
Because I remember you were at Legacy and had a Vivint background.
yeah, I just didn't know, I just didn't know what I was doing. Right. Like I went from selling 50% savings to people are going to pay more for power. And I had no support, no help, trying to run a team, create a team.
Yeah.
And I was just like, okay, I'm over that. I'm going to go learn from a team, be a part of a team. So I was like, help me out and join you guys' team. And Jason Crown was running it. And
That was after Dave had left to go to Riverside.
Dave had just left. So Dave wasn't there. Ty, you were kind of there, but kind of on your way out.
Was it Mel that was with
It
Jason?
must have been Mel. Yeah. And so I came in, and this was 2015. And by 2016, I got promoted to DM, or market leader.
Mm-hmm.
That's when I met you.
Yeah. And so this was like my pinnacle, right?
Did you feel like by that point you had like, you had kind of been promoted before, like you thought you were ready, but you weren't ready. And so then it's kind of like death by fire. Got burned with the Legacy thing. Did you feel like this time, having come in and been like a part of a team, getting your feet underneath you, that you were a lot more like ready to lead?
Well, yeah. I mean, the last times it was like my own, twice when I wanted to go run teams, it was like, hey, me saying, hey, I'm ready.
Mm.
And the guys at the top were saying, okay, yeah, sure, go do it. And realizing I wasn't even capable, right? So this time, like doing it the right way, like just being a part of the team, outselling people, pay my dues, and then them coming to me and saying, "Hey, look, I think you're ready." Felt amazing, right? And so again, still like heavier and heavier in my addiction at this point. Like it's getting out of control.
Dude, from my vantage, if you don't mind, at this point, I didn't know you had an Adderall addiction at this point. But I saw you come in, and I was actually like, there's a lot of people that come from leading that don't do very well, like contributing to a team, filling in the gaps, and then like going for like kind of stepping back to go forward. There's a lot of people that don't do that. And I remember like that conversation, I remember thinking like that was easy. Like it wasn't a hard conversation. I won't even call it a recruiting meeting. It was just like kind of like a realignment of what you needed. But I remember thinking like this guy is great. But then I remember the extreme, like, so I had done all my volume there. A lot of people in the industry don't know that you like architected the add-on, like, but you had this ability to mine our like most primitive systems. And like, so it probably did give you like that focus to just like, literally like I could not have navigated the system. Like you had this like really intense, unique skill that did support you for a while. You could find, because we had a lot of people come through the industry and not make it at that time. We could only do an 80% offset. We couldn't do electrical upgrades for a lot of it. Couldn't do tile roofs for a lot of the volume. And so there was a lot of meat on the bone. And you saw that opportunity. And I remember like would like come into the office at night and just like ping, 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 like pick through it. And you were getting volume, but I never put the two together that it's like, because you were pretty high functioning, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And I'd like figured out the whole 80% offset. Like I hired my own electrician to dig the trenches to get the proper wire sizing. I mean, the wire was buried without conduit, so I had to be buried with new conduit. And I just hired my own crew to do it. So I'd go to these accounts at John Sanders, whatever, and these customers are upset, right? Hey, I'm still getting a bill. I'm like, hey, I'm like, I got a solution, right? Let me hire, let me get you what you need. And so,
and back then you were making like 160 a kilowatt, so you were just raking it.
Yeah. Adding 2.7 kilowatt systems to houses.
Yeah, I wasn't bringing the dough, but
do you remember Billy Bob at Conejo Valley? Remember that?
I just talked to Billy last week.
No way.
He's still going.
Yeah, he was our like our hookup electrician. Like you literally text Billy Bob and he'd figure it out.
Really?
Yeah, the same.
Wow. Shout out Billy Bob, dude.
And so yeah, I got promoted. Which I think is most reps' goal or aspirations to get promoted. And so
it's kind of like you made it to the NFL. Like getting promoted, you have a lot. It is kind of about the same odds probably as like playing high school football to college football to making it into the NFL. It's like it does take the same level of showing up, doing the work, chopping wood, all that stuff. And for various reasons, anyone's capable of doing it, but most people don't actually like put in the work for long enough, or they try to skip steps or, whatever, and don't end up making it to that place. So yeah, I mean, you kind of made it to the pinnacle of, of the league.
They also have this lavender lemonade at the Urban Cafe. And they have these like salted warm cookies that they bring you after your meal.
So I was stoked. To be there. The quickest, the crazy thing is I became a market leader in 2016. I was demoted from a market leader position 9 months later. And so that's when like the addiction like finally caught up.
Why did that demotion happen?
So what happened was I was so deep in my addiction. I was making a lot more money. So I was spending more money on pills. I was going through a prescription that should last you 30 days. I was taking in 2 days.
Wow.
I was spending $4,000 a month.
What are some of the behaviors from your eyes? Like what did that, like when you look back on that time, like what were like the signs of that? Like what were the symptoms of that?
Of what?
Like what would your day be like?
So busy with a lot of busy work.
Yeah.
Right. I got to put spreadsheets together and like figure out what houses needed what. And like you had access to like portals that had like customers' information. And like I could go in and see what someone's usage was and see what we put on. And I could pinpoint exactly what houses like needed add-ons. And so like I just obsessed over that. So, put all this stuff together. I spent a lot of time doing that. Then I'd go to Hood and spend a lot of time out in Hood, making sales and doing the things. Then I'd go back to the office and I'd be in the office, crazy enough. I would try to leave before the operations got there the next morning. So
I remember that. I wondered if you remembered that because being there, like, first of all, like everybody always rooted for you. Like, I just don't know how much of that is conscious to you and how much of that is like what you what your reality like in your head looked like. But I remember at first being like, wow, Brindley's got this like really unique skill. He's a hustler. He works really hard. He cares. And you always had just like the best heart. Like everybody always rooted for you. And you had a lot of leaders come through there and a lot of people work with you and everybody rooted for you. But during that time, I remember like the days pretty hard to get a hold of before 11 a.m. Insane with like the data mining to the point where I looked at him like, I would never want to do that. But you were just pow, 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 pow. And then like you'd get this volume, you're getting really skinny. And then you came in and would be like cleaning the warehouse, like, or organizing this stuff and just like obsessively active, right?
That was when I met James, like when I moved to Thousand Oaks, and we always had a clean office because he had broke in the night before and cleaned it all up for us.
Breaking in to clean the office.
Yeah, he would break in to not do any damage. He would clean it all up, and it was nice the next day.
It's like there's only 78 paper clips. There needs to be 95 paper clips.
Everything was perfect.
I do remember the last time that I think I saw you before you came back. And it was a leadership. It was one of those meetings, and we all came into Ty's office, and we were sitting there meeting. And you came in late, and you had lost so much weight since the time I'd seen you before. Like, I mean, I don't know if you remember what you weighed then.
Yeah, probably like 150, 160.
And it's crazy because when we heard, dude, this guy played for the Seahawks, we're like, I think he's lying.
Yeah.
Well,
We're seeing the picture, like the roster picture, and your neck starts at your ears and goes to your shoulders. Yeah,
and I remember seeing that, and then you weren't very. It was like you were almost like a zombie during the meeting because you just, whatever reason, like you just weren't able to so you just you came in late and you kind of just sat there. And I was like, it was like you could see it, when you're in it, like, you can't see it clearly, but when you're sitting outside of it, like my view was just like when I'd come and check in and whatever. So that's when I'd see you. And it was at kind of that point that I like had remembered. And it's kind of weird. It's like, seeing like your grandparent, when like right before they pass and they're like old and shriveled, you don't remember like the vibrant version of them that was alive for so long. Like that was like the screen, like the snapshot in time from when I saw you then to when I next saw you here in Austin. And remember when I saw you, I'm like, no way, dude, like big and healthy and lively. Anyway, it'd be interesting to kind of know from like the point I saw you then to the point I saw you again in Austin, how did that happen?
Yeah. So, I'll tell you, and to Ty's point, like I remember, waking up to a text message one day several times, and it was like from Jeff or whoever was the Jeff Baumsider, like, hey, dude, where you at? And this would be like a day before, and he's like, Ty came to the office today, and you were nowhere to be found, And so on these crashes, if I ran out of pills, I would sleep for 48 hours at a time. And I would be nowhere to be found. My roommates would come in and be like, dude, are you alive? Like, we haven't seen you in 2 days. And so, long story short, I felt like I was the first market leader DM to ever get demoted, And so again, like kind of goes back to like the same shame and depressed, like the feelings the guilt, this time I brought it onto myself again.
And at this point, you still hadn't talked about why you'd been cut from the NFL.
Also, it was just a secret.
It was just building.
Yeah.
Well, it wasn't a secret to anybody else, but you think you're holding it like it's a secret.
I'm trying to do my best to act like everything's normal, keeping sales, trying to escape. I didn't realize you guys knew to the extent like what like I was doing and stuff.
We didn't know to the extent, but I sometimes like pretty honest conversation. I wonder if you remember the conversations we had. Okay.
No.
That's why I asked, like, why do you think you got demoted? Because again, everybody was rooting for you, but we had multiple conversations where it's like, hey, you've got to be present at these things. You have to be able to pull it together. And then ultimately you just kind of couldn't. But the person that I personally heard toil over it the most was Jeff.
Mm-hmm.
He did it. Jeff was gutted and he was worried, and he would like, he'd look out. He was the one that would like count the hours since he had last seen you. And he was like scared that someday we're going to get terrible news. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. And I hope that sits as like your friends cared about you and definitely loved you. But it's also hard for me to hear because it's crazy, because had you just opened and had we done more, right? Always, but you definitely weren't the first market leader to be demoted. That is like, that's a lot.
But again, it's the story you tell yourself, and like being someone who grew up the way you did and worked so hard and achieved and succeeded despite the odds, and like that's who you are.
Yeah.
So this version of yourself that was showing up, it's not you,
mm-hmm.
but you're kind of trying to like hold on to that version of yourself, even though no one else is seeing that. You know what I mean? And it would be better to just be like, yeah, this isn't me. This isn't who I am. How do I get help? At what point? Because obviously that happened at some point.
Yeah.
At what point did that happen for you where it was like, okay, this is unsustainable, right?
Yeah. So after getting demoted, I fell even deeper into addiction, taking whatever pills I would wake up to Adderall and fall asleep to Xanax.
Mm-hmm.
I started taking other stuff and getting deeper and deeper into my addiction, and really just selling just enough to
make ends meet.
Yeah. To pay for my addiction.
Mm-hmm.
And it came to a point where like I kind of became someone else, and I was stealing and lying and cheating. And like, there was days where I'd tell my dad, like, dude, I didn't eat for a couple days. Like I got no money for food, no money for gas. I can't pay rent. And, so dad helped me out, and, he'd pay my rent, give me some money, and I'd go get an install or a sale. And so it just got worse and worse and worse and worse, to the point where, one day, I was living in Thousand Oaks, and, my dad came and picked me up, and I'm like, dude, what are you doing here? And he's like, you called me last night and told me, you called me last night and told me that you're going to kill yourself. And, I'd taken like 24, Xanax, and, so he drove down 8 hours and took me to a hospital, and, was kind of, my dad didn't take any drugs or alcohol growing up. Like it was never in the house, super straight edge. And so he didn't really know how to, handle it. So he's like, hey, I'm going to take you to a hospital and hopefully you get the help you need there. And, at the time I was just like, once I realized what was going on, I was just like, okay, how quick can I get out of this hospital? It's all voluntary. So, it was a drug hospital, like a detox place. And they're just like, you got to just do this, this, and this to check these boxes and you can be released. And so, my dad was like upset about me getting out super quick. I was like in there for like 3 or 4 days, and there I was back at home, back in my addiction, and I did that twice. And it was tough, right? I mean, one time, there's several times I shouldn't have lived through what I was doing to myself, and, I tried getting help, went to rehab, got sober for, maybe 5-6 months at a time. And then one thing led to the next where I'd start using again. And this time, whenever, I would use again, I just got deeper. I got back to where I was quicker and more intense, and now drinking, and now this and now that. And so I was getting like tired. It's a full-time job to track down that much, drugs. And I was tired of the person I was becoming. I was tired of living this life of being hungry and not having money, stealing, lying, but still using. I can't stop. I'm stuck, right? Like I can't wake up. I can't function without it. And
at this point, were you being open with anyone in your life about, like, voluntarily open about like what was happening, or was it just more like you were still trying to conceal it from friends and family?
Yeah, I didn't like talking about it. I think I think some family came once and like tried to do like an intervention and was like, hey, look, like, you need help. And I just remember like, dude, are you guys gonna leave? Like, just, yeah, I'm good. Like I can handle myself, So I didn't accept it. And I was still selling solar a little bit, in 2018. That was, I got demoted end of 2016. Tried to go through some rehab, some programs for the next, couple of years, not worked. And then I was, in November of 2018, I was getting solar installed on a house in Newbury Park the next day, but I needed to take off the solar thermal, or like whatever people use to heat pools, like the mesh type stuff. So it was this 2-story house. A friend went to this house to disconnect it, to take it off so we can get the solar installed. And I disconnected around the top perimeter of it. I was doing the bottom perimeter of it, and I stepped on the mesh and completely fell off the 2nd-story roof, 25 feet, and landed, just straight up and down, and broke my back and broke my foot. And again, like, knowing my condition, I just played it off like I was fine. I mean, the ambulance came, fire truck came, and I was like, no, I don't need to go to the hospital. Like, I'm fine. The guy that owned the house was a firefighter. So he's like, don't move until, and I was like, dude, you're just wasting your time. Like, I'm not going anywhere.
With a broken back and a broken foot.
Yeah. Got up, got the ladder, dropped it off at the warehouse, went home. And Shane, the ops manager at the time, was like, just go into the hospital, like, just get checked out, just in case. I was like, fine. Like, I felt like I'd gotten hit by a truck. But playing football, I didn't think much of it. And
Brindley, you fell off a roof.
This is my mental capacity at this time, Yeah. And so
he's like, why do I feel so sore?
I just remember I couldn't even walk into the hospital. I broke my heel. It hurt so bad. Like, couldn't find the entrance, and finally I had to like flag someone down. Like, I can't walk. And she's like, let me get your wheelchair. I was like, okay, thank you. But still, then I thought I was fine, right? And the doctor came out and was like, hey, does your back hurt? Does your foot hurt? And I was like, no. I was like, yeah, but not bad. And he's like, well, you broke your back, you broke your foot. You're going to be here a little bit longer. And oddly enough, that was the same night that I was supposed to go on a date with this girl, and so I texted her. I'm like, hey, look, I'm in the hospital, broke my back, broke my foot. I'm not going to make it tonight. And she was like, oh yeah, no worries. I thought I was completely like blowing her off,
She's like, broken back. This is a first.
Yeah.
Did you have to fill in the foot part?
Yeah. And, we ended up meeting up later that week or the next week, and kind of connected. She had 2 kids, and like lived with her parents. I was living with my brother, and I was broken, right? Like, practically no job, broken back, broken foot. She at least had her life together. Like, she had a great job. She was a single mom. Like, she was, crushing it. But, talking about it now, she's like, I was broken. Like, I didn't want to be there, I think God, brought us together, and, we moved kind of quickly and ended up moving in together, February of 2018. And, like, I was getting kicked out of my brother's house. He was having a kid. He's like, dude, you got to go. And she was trying to find a way out of her house. And she's like, I went to go check out like a 1-bedroom apartment in Simi Valley, like the day before. And she just texted me the next day. It's like, hey, I'm thinking about getting this apartment. Like, we could be roommates. And I was like, oh, better you than like these like drug addicts that I was about to live with. Like, and so I was like, let's do it. And, And so we moved in together. And at this point, like she has no idea about my addiction. You know,
We're still in it.
still in it. Yeah. Oh yeah, still in it. But we'd only see each other for a couple hours at a time, and she had a full-time job, and so I was able to play it off. And
Where were the kids?
the kids are at school. I mean, they're
But
8
they were-
and 11. Yeah, they're there.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're there. 8 and 11. They're gone all day, and I could act normal. I would stay busy, right? Moved in, I was doing stuff in the garage, like just out of sight, out of mind. I wasn't really present, clearly. And it wasn't until like a month later, we drove out to Arizona together to drop off the kids at their father's house and to see my grandma in Arizona. And my Laura at the time was like, she's like, why are you sleeping so much? Like we're here visiting your family and like you're sleeping for all day, 8 to 12 hours. Like she's like, wait, like what's going on with you? And that's the moment where, I was just like, all right, I'm just gonna like tell her everything. And so, just told her, hey, look, I got this massive addiction problem. And, I need help. And, I haven't been able to do it on my own, And, if I was her, I would have been like, okay, I'm out of here, like, good to meet you. Glad, got to hang out for a little bit. But her response was just like, she's like, I got you, like, we're going to figure it out. We're going to get through it. And like, it was that moment where I was just like, she believed in me more than I believed in myself, and it's like, it was what I needed. And, that was March, 31st. And we just kind of put a plan together. She's like, okay, what, like, she's new to her, right? She doesn't do drugs. She doesn't do any of that stuff.
How long had you guys known each other at that point?
We met in November.
Pretty crazy that after that short, like she shows up at that time and has that mentality and has kids and is like, I've got you. Like that's what a woman, man.
Yeah. And so that was March 31st, April 1st, or that night we drove back into town in Moore Park. I met with my sponsor. His name is Leif, a guy that I'd gone through rehab with a year before. He had stayed sober, and met with him and just like talked to him about like what was going on. And, he's like, hey, I got you, and then I went to a doctor like the next day. Cause I knew, having so much dopamine, like you're going to be depressed. You're going to have anxiety. You're going to have, it's going to be a tough road ahead. And so I met with a psychiatrist, and she gave me some depression medication, anxiety medication, and just kind of got a game plan together. And, a part of it too was just like, I don't want these kids, like, ever, or if I ever have ever seen me like through this addiction, like I never wanted it for myself, but it was the point where I was just like, I was tired of being tired and just made the choice of like, hey, this is it. I tried the rehabs. I tried doing the 12-step program. But just like her love and support was really just all I needed to like, to just believe in myself enough to do it, And so,
well, and how do you feel after like, I mean, this is the first time you've opened up to somebody and like, and then immediately to go, I mean, the doctor to Laura, to the doctor, to the sponsor, that's 3 people immediately that you opened up to versus 10 to 12 years of keeping it quiet.
Yeah. I mean, it was part of her, like, again, my brain is so fried and not like, it's just not super there. So like her being able to guide me and help with me is just kind of what I needed. And, I was numb to everything. So even like opening up was just kind of like, I knew I should be doing it, but it's not like I felt any feelings behind it. I didn't feel anything. It wasn't until years later where I actually started like feeling and then talking about actually like feeling free and good about it. But it was the hardest thing ever for the next, now the hard work started April 1st, 2019, and it was tough, and, I was getting $2,000 a month for my workman's comp for breaking my back. I still had a broken foot, broken back. And, it was just like baby steps. I had to like relearn how to do everything, and I had to find purpose again. And I remember at first my first thing that I felt good about doing, the purpose I had was my job was to wake up, take the kids, kids to school, and then pick them up. I take them to school, go back home, sleep for 5 hours, pick them up, and then be able to kind of, hang out with them, whatever, have dinner, and then go back to sleep. And that was what my life consisted of, for a while, and there was just like building blocks. And then I went in and saw Brock. I thought like, kind of got to a good place, a better place, I should say, where I was like, hey, I need to start working again. And I'm like, all I know is door knocking. Like I can probably do this again. So I went into a meeting with Brock and I was like, dude, I'm ready to go. Like I can do this. And he's like, cool, dude. Like let's do it. And I remember my wife, or, still not my wife, still, just a girlfriend, fiance. And, she didn't really know anything about, door knocking, just kind of was like, had no hope for me making it work. And, her son, had baseball practice, and she dropped me off in the neighborhood. I was like, hey, you go knock, do your thing, and I'll be at practice, and I'll pick you up when practice is over or whenever you call me. I remember I knocked 3 doors. I knocked 2 doors, no one answered. Then I knocked a Vivint Solar door, customer, talked to him for 15 minutes or so, and then it's like, dude, I can't do this. I can't. I'm not here mentally. I'm still foggy. I got no confidence. My motivation is shot. So I walked a mile or 2 to the practice, and she's like, it's fast. Like, what are you doing? Thought you were going to work. I was like, that's not it. I can't, right now where I'm at, I can't knock doors. It's too much. She's like, okay, what are you going to do? And, fast forward a little bit, I got a job. It was a humbling experience. I got a job selling cell phones for Verizon or a dealer called Go Wireless in the Northridge Mall. Yeah. And I worked with a bunch of 17 and 18-year-olds, and I was like, dude, I'm like, what am I doing here? First day of work, I set off all these resumes and tried to get like a quote unquote good job. I didn't think I would ever knock doors again. That was in the past, done. Can't do it, not for me. And I was on an interview with Toast. I don't know if you know Toast. They're like a sales card reader type thing. And in the middle of the interview, I just hung up. I'm like, yep, I can't even do that. I was so slow and foggy. I wasn't sharp. And, I just felt like a lethargic version of myself. And for years, it took me years to like rewire my brain. And it wasn't until just recently, like a year and a half ago, where I woke up and I'm like, Laura, I feel like my old self, like I'm sharp and witty and I can speak. Not 100%, but like I feel a lot better. But anyways, I did that job, and it was the biggest blessing, because it gave me purpose, gave me a little bit more confidence in myself. And it was just like, looking back at it, I'm like, dude, like, I feel like an idiot, out of place. Like I was just so grateful that I could provide a little bit of income. I was making $12 an hour selling phones, making $6 commission. Like it wasn't about the money. It was, yes, we needed the money, but it was just like a stepping stone or stepping block
chopping the wood.
Yeah, in the right direction. And I knew I had to do something, and so I had to set my ego aside to just be like, hey, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do it to the best of my ability, and it's going to allow me to gain confidence in myself again, to where hopefully I can do something better. Then COVID hit, and so all the cell phone stores shut down, and my wife at the time, or still not my wife, was able to work from home, and she was pregnant with our first child, and we're like, she's like, let's get out of. She's like, I can move anywhere. I can work from home. Like I can move anywhere. And I was like, okay, let's go to Texas. Like I've sold there for 2 years. Love it. Like we could probably afford something. We were living in a 2-bedroom apartment. And we needed to get a third room because we were about to have another baby, and the rent was just too expensive in Simi Valley, California to afford. So we're like, let's leave. I had a buddy in college who owned a small solar company in Dallas. And he's like, hey, I'll fly out here. You can see if you can do it. If you can do it, then, you can open up the Austin market. So he flew me out there in August of 2020. And I was like, struggle again. Like I could not, I was out there for like 3 weeks, no sales, couldn't really, like I had trouble getting out of my car and even doing the job. And I just felt so much guilt and shame again, just from like my Laura's at home and I'm supposed to be like here working and seeing if I can do this. I just wasn't even putting in the reps. It wasn't until the last day where I got out. I'm like, okay, I have to try. And I sold 2 that day. And it was like the biggest confidence booster. Like, hey, look, I think I can do this again. And so that was in August. The plan was to move out there in January of 2021. My wife and I got married actually on Christmas Day, 2020. Just so happened that we were moving, a couple days later, still COVID. Not sure if people were going to make it out of Texas. We're like, hey, my dad's here. He's going to be the efficient. And he married us, 5 people there. And, my wife is pregnant or now she's pregnant, and then we moved to Texas, with a house sight unseen, just small house in Georgetown. And then that first 9 months of selling solar was a struggle, like the job is demanding when you're still not yourself, when I was still very depressed. I was on depression medication. I was on anxiety medication. I was doing better, but still not, I knew what I was capable of, but I just wasn't there, I struggled with that. Just like my wife struggled with it too. Just, I was tired. I was take the kids to school. Then I have to sleep for like 3 or 4 hours. And she was just like, man, what are you doing? Like, she didn't understand that, it wasn't me, but it bugged her, she's like, go do stuff, go work. And I'm like, trying, so that 9 months was a struggle. I had 14 installs in 9 months with this company, and had a little team, was making progress. And then out of the blue, Brock and Jordan texted me, while I was in the hospital having our second child. And they're like, hey, we're thinking about opening up Texas. Can we meet with you? Like, I don't know how they knew I was out there, but I told my wife, I'm like, dude, the same guys that demoted me want to hire me. She's like, no way. And sure enough, it was your brother and Brock. And they met. I remember leaving the hospital to meet them, and we talked, and they're like, we'll give you $10,000, if you come over. My wife's like, she didn't believe it. She's like, no chance. And a couple of days later, I had 10 grand in my bank account, and we were barely getting by. It's like having this money was just like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. Now we can pay rent and do these things. And
what's funny at that time, because the last time I had really seen you was kind of like the pretty low time. Dude, you'd fallen off a roof, and then you'd kind of came back. But I remember you calling me, telling me when you walked to the football field, and you're just like, dude, I'm sorry, but I can't do it. And then to see you even at that, it was like a BJ's or something, the restaurant that we sat at. Yeah. But just to see you, I was like, wow, he's put together. And that's why we had confidence, even though you didn't. We were like, wow, he's actually he's ready to go, we think. And we need to open a market. He's already selling solar. And so for me, it's just crazy how much you were still carrying from that long, because it had been a couple of years since you were clean,
Mm-hmm.
and how that still lingered. And I don't think people understand how long that lasts and what you still go through. But But it, to your credit, like you had been chopping the wood, and this was like the lifeline, the extra lifeline you needed to kind of to get it going at another level.
Yeah. It just felt so, I can't even put it into words, just like the fact that like I had so much respect for Ty and I, felt like I had let a lot of people down and, screwed up. And a lot of times you don't get, second chances. And the fact that you guys were like going to give me a second chance after, like, I mean, there was, like there was, I wasn't the best rep when I was leaving in 2016. And the fact that you guys had confidence in me just like gave me so much more belief and confidence that I didn't even have in myself. The fact that you guys saw it in me, I was like, dude, let's, this is amazing, and I was still struggling with depression and stuff. But again, I have now 2 kids and 2 older kids. I have 4 kids total. And I have to, just keep, the motto I kind of live by now is like, just do the next right thing, whatever that is, like just do the next right thing. And I just remember that was the next right thing. Didn't know what it was going to look like, didn't know how it was going to go, but I knew I was staying in Texas. I knew it wasn't going anywhere. So I was just going to kind of figure it out, and then it kind of was tough for the first 3 years,
And to look at it from the, again, from my perspective, which is like you kind of don't realize sometimes like how other people are watching and seeing your story and things. But from my perspective, coming in and seeing you again for the first time, like I said, it was just like, and Brock had told me, he's like, dude, James is back and he looks so great. And he's, in this great marriage and this whole thing, and kind of told me a little bit about your story and coming to see you then. And the office was so weird and small, and there were like 4 reps in the room. And I'm looking at Austin as a market thinking, man, this is like, everyone wants to live in Austin now. And it could be such a phenomenal market, but the team is so small. We have so long to go. And, having been back a few times now, and you and I had a conversation last time, and you were talking about how even though you had been clean, and even though you had been doing all these right things, your body is a biological mechanism that just takes time to reset and get back to normal. And every time you take a shortcut, like you take something to take a shortcut, it costs something. And you end up paying that cost, later, even though you don't think that you will, you do. And so you had all this time of like paying back that cost and regaining where you were. But now seeing where you are, Austin's one of the hottest teams in the company right now. Highest per rep average, going to do 200 installs. Reps hit franchise. You hit
franchise a couple times this year.
Yeah, you've hit franchise a couple times.
Set the record in Texas for most installs.
Yeah.
It's like insane.
Yeah, seeing like you just putting forth that work, like again, it's the ability to do that. It's the ability to show up consistently, chop the wood, and you can't always control how things are going to go. But as time goes on, obviously, like you just build up more and more proof. You do the work and the proof comes later. And so looking at it now, like, from all of us, the level of, I'm so impressed, dude. Like I'm genuinely, most people don't come back from that the way that you did. And many people obviously live out their lives. You've seen it, live out their life in cycles through that. But for you to be able to come back and you're performing now at a higher level than you've ever performed, you're building a team better than you've ever done that.
His family's thriving.
Your family's thriving. You have a great relationship. And so many people look up to you because right now you're actually living who you are, like who you actually are. So, to be able to watch that, first off, thank you for sharing that vulnerable story with us, because I know so many people that hear this will be able to relate and hopefully understand. They may be on that same road way earlier and realize, hey, I should just be open about this.
Oh.
I should just open up and get help and maybe even reach out to you and get advice. so that they don't have to go all the way down that road, that path, because it's where it leads, right? It always leads to where it leads. And, just to be able to see you do this, like maybe you don't need us to say this, but all of us are just immensely proud of you.
Thank you.
100%. We interviewed a guy the other day that's he's a certified like family interventionalist, and he does a lot of recovery, but he focuses on the family. And he has this tagline that I keep thinking about during this, that is, our secrets keep us sick. That's what he says. And so if you think about it, it's like there's people around you that want to help you. Honestly, a lot of people just don't know how. Same way you didn't know how to like walk that road. Like your dad didn't know how to help. We didn't know how to help. Sounds like Laura kind of knew how to help like best like she could, but it really is like, if nothing else, like what Taylor just said, like if anybody is like struggling with things or has something holding them back, it's the secret that keeps you sick. And once you release it, that literally like starts to heal. And you worry that like your worst fears are going to come true. Like you release your secret and then you're going to be alone. But what most people have found is you release your secret, and that's when the angels show up and people want to help and things start getting better. But again, dude, like you were proactive in being willing to share this story, and I'm so appreciative of it, because a lot of people, I don't know, you are showing up as yourself. That's like, listen, like you have confidence and your story can help, and you're not worried about what it means. And honestly, like it's a success story, and it's something you'll probably it'll rear its head from time to time. You'll still have to work with it. But the progress that you've made and the man you've become is really exciting and something that people should aspire to. So thank you for being here. We need to wrap and get out and put our fists on doors today. But thank you so much for sharing, and congratulations on your success.
Thank you.
If you like what you hear and are interested in joining the team, DM us on Instagram at RunXStreet.
What are you waiting for? Shoot us a DM and let's get going.